Welcome to the Plan 6 parts video. Welcome to the next part of tr6 engine rebuild. So on the last video we had done the timing, so now we're going to move on to the pedestal. So this pedestal is your distributor, where your distributor sits in, and should have got to see. Your camshaft runs across here, and this gearing sets your time. This sets your timing regarding your distributor. So I have an arrow pointing in because that's the one that points in. Because if you're not sure, there is a big D and a little d. Alright, the little one goes towards the block and the big one stays out. It'd be great if you had it the other way, B for B and the other way, but like unfortunately not. So, and if you're not sure which one is which, get your distributor, put it on, put this on the bottom of the distributor, and then bring it around to number 1, which should be down around like 7 o'clock, thereabouts on it if you look at the thing. You'll know, because if you look at the gearing, your RPM, your tack, should be coming in this direction, so you'll know which way is facing which, and then this will only sit one way, and then you know which one's which. If you ever get it wrong, you do it one either. Anyway, this needs to go down and sit down. On the bottom end of it, you can see there's a groove taken out of it, and that's what sits into your oil pump, and that spins it and sends oil around, so it has to make sure it sits down. So at the end of this, we need some end plate, which is basically the bottom of the pedestal here. So between this and this, there has to be 5/10 of an inch space in between these. How can we measure them, especially if they're in here? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to raise this. So we get a washer. According to the manual, what we'll do is we'll get a washer, make sure it's large enough, and we'll sit it underneath this. We'll drop it down, we'll click it in, make sure it's in, and we've raised the pedestal. This in turn will have the pedestal sit on top of it, raise it up, and then we'll be left with a gap here between the bottom of the pedestal and the block itself. Sorry, I'm just wiping it because I want to get all the dust and dirt off it, because you'd be surprised what a piece of dust can do. It'd be 1/10 of an inch. And then we measure the gap. Whatever the gap is, we have to have 5/10 of a gap between both. So like, you take this gap minus the thickness of the washer that will measure, and whatever's left over is what you currently have. If you don't need any, you don't add any. If you need some more, you just add on shims or little gaskets, that paper tin gaskets, and keep stacking them until you end up with your 5/10, or as close to. If you were short, and let's say your gaskets were 3/10 and you had 2, would you add another one on? Do you know what? I probably would, only because I'd rather have a little bit too big than be too short, because you'll do more damage. However, you could torque it a bit more to make it up. Anyway, so what we're going to do is, first of all, we want to measure our washer. You know, back here. Now, I'm pretty sure the last I measured it on the dial gauge, and it was measured at 73. So we'll see if we're getting the same here. So this one, sorry, the flies on there saying 72. I'm going to keep spinning just to make sure it's 72, 73, 71.5. Wow, this is not very good. Let me be sure it's at 0. Oh, come on. 0. So I'm saying 73. Make sure it's just 72.5. So yeah, we'll say 73. So we'll say this is at 73. So, oh God, let me get up. So in here is where the gearing goes. So, make the camera a bit better. So we're going to drop it in here, and we're going to drop our timing gear on top. Make sure it's nice and clean on there if you can. Alright, so now we want to make sure we throw this in. Now, it doesn't make a difference if it's not set to top dead center, you just want to get it in. I like to use this tool because I find I have a much better grip with it. You can use a magnet or pliers, whatever rocks your boat. Now, that's gone down. However, I wanted to go all the way down, but I'm not happy that it's gone down all the way so far so quick. So I'm going to take it out and purposely move gear. I'm going to purposely move it that it sits up. So, as you can see, but I moved it that it stays sitting up. That way I know it's gone down when I turn it. Right, so let's crank it around. Keep the finger on it just for a bit of pressure. And it clicks in. I'm going to turn it a few times. I want to make sure it's gone all the way down. Alright, so now I have it set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pedestal on top. And hang on, let me move this a bit back. Maybe this will help a bit. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Actually, I'm putting it up here and I still have to measure the gap in here. Alright, so I'm going to put the pedestal back on. If anybody's wondering why this is on, this is for to help me pick it up, actually, make it a little easier. Alright, so actually I'm going to torque it to spec, which it says 14. Alright, so now that's on. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the gap in around here. So, bring the camera back around again. So there's our gap. So here's the gap here we need to measure and compare it to the 73 thou of an inch that we used for the washer. Now, so where do we start to put it in? How do we do this? There's no set rule. I'm going to go and start with the width of the washer. So I'm going to take the feeler gauges. I'm actually going to measure one that ends up at 73. So we'll take let's say a 25 and a 24, which is 49, and the 23, 49, 20, 40, 60, 65, 69, 73. Okay, so funny enough, actually that works out. So 25, 24, 23, yeah? 73, oh, that's 72, isn't it? 60, 69, 72, so I need to swap the 25 for 26. Right. So 20, 40, 50, 73. Oops, sorry. I don't know if you can see the numbers now, that's 73. So that's the width of the actual washer I put on. So let's see how much of a space we have. Just fits under there, a little tight here. It's a little tight, so we'll go with a 72. So we're going to change the 23 to a 22. So we have 26 and 24, which is 50, and then 22 is 72. It's a little tight on this end, but it slips in nice and easy over here. So a little tight. So like most of it is 72. So again, I could take it that the bottom of the pedestal mightn't be the cleanest. I try to clean it, but it mightn't be the cleanest, so it could be a little bit of paint stopping it. But I have to, if this fits in here easy enough, and I have to take that, should be the same. So we'll go back to a 73 again. Let me see where I can get it on this one. So we have what? 25 and 26, which is 51, 71, 75. So that was plus 220, 75. That's, I would say that. I'd say it's 75. So I say we have 2 tail play. So 75 fits in there. Let's get the gauge. Just to measure in case. So oh, did I count numbers wrong? 72.5. Yet this is 26 and 25. So 40. 51, 71, 75. It's not right. No, it's pushing too hard. So 75, yeah. Alright. So if we had a 73 and the gapping seems to be 75, or let's say 74, we should be able to get away with just one gasket. So that's pretty much one gasket. Now again, what's the size of the gaskets? Let's go check. Let's get back up again. Oh, these boots. So, well, for some reason this is I don't know why, it was off. We'll check that gap again. So this one looks like it's a 5 tail gasket. So that's going to leave me, that's pretty much the thing on its own. So, yeah, it's a 5 tail. So I guess I'm putting just one gasket on it. That's it. So, yeah. Now what I can do is I can always take this washer off and get another one, because it could be that washer might have a little bellow, little tiny bellow, hence why one side is tighter than the other. That would explain that. So the only way to do that is to find another washer that's absolutely perfectly flush. And again, maybe they exist, maybe they don't, like I said, unless they're precision made. But judging on that, if I measure the tallest end of 73 and I went to the tallest end, and I measured 75 and I have 2 tail, then I'll put one gasket in. So the only way I could know that is to measure the smallest size of the washer. So if I took the smallest end and took the smallest end, then that would make sense. So, but again, I'm being realistic here. If you're using a washer, how flush is it, how flat, you can measure one side of it, and it could be one size. It's always going to measure the biggest size. So according to this, the biggest size was 73, and I end up with a 75 in here. So yeah, I'm going to put one gasket in, and that's it. And that should be enough. Because one gasket will give me a 5 tail end plate according to this gasket anyway. I don't think I have any other sizes. I'm pretty sure they all came as a package. And I want to measure again. Well, I have 2 of them here, so. That's 5. That's 5. So these are 5 tail gaskets. So give or take a bit of torque on it, it should be fine. So one gasket it is. Now again, maybe your supplier, for whoever you're using, has different sizes. Maybe do them in 1 tau or 2 or 3 tau, and that's fine. So now you know where to go, but the ones I get obviously here are 5 tau, so it looks like I'm just putting the one in and that's it. So I'm going to take this off, I'll put the end on, so I really want to get this engine back in. And then I'm obviously going to notice now I forgot to put the plugs back in, the oil plugs. So I'll put them in along the side. And from there, like I said, I'm going to spin it around and get the sump onto it. So that's that part of it. I'm going to put these in, and hopefully on the next video we'll be putting it back into the car. I don't think I've anything else to do, and I'm pretty happy with everything else. So yeah, as long as that's right, I'll use the timing gear. I need to make sure that's set to top dead center, so when I take it out and put the gearing back in, now I actually will. Actually, do you know what? Let's do it now. Let's do it now while I'm doing it. Let's go set top TDC. Might as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the find the top dead center, and obviously take the washer out and stuff, and then I'm going to set the gearing correctly. Once the gearing is set, that's fine. There's no rush or panic. This is why that's why I put this bolt in here, just so I can lift that off pretty good. This is why I didn't, the reason why I didn't put the end in it is that if it never falls in here, that's why I didn't put the sump on yet. It will just go straight out the bottom of the block. So until all this is done, I'll put the sump on. Alright, so let's come back around. And let's find our TDC. So there's the pencil line. Yeah, I find the camera a lot easier to use than my eyes. Alright. You know what? I've gone past TDC. Oh, the camera turned off. I'm actually using the camera to follow this. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. Yeah, alright. So now we have TDC. Goes for our gearing. Now, I know I'm not too worried about the gasket just yet, because it does us to measure how many gaskets I need to put on. So what I'm looking at is we need to get the gearing to line up with, sorry, the shadow, because it's getting dark out. So basically between here and here, the gearing has to line up with this. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put it in, and we will we don't have to look at the TDC anymore. So we're going to put this in where we think it lines up with the TDC. So let's say for there, for argument's sake, right? Now it still has to spin around and click down. So I'll take a rough measurements. Let's say rough measurements up. I'm going to look at where it lines up with the gearing. Alright? So as you can see, it's not near yet. However, before I change it, I'm going to spin it around just to make sure it's actually set down. There it goes. I don't know if you hear the pop. Right, so you hear the pop. So now I need to go back and go back to TDC again and see how far I'm off. So, put it back on top of that center. I'm looking at the gearing. As you can see, it's off. So I need to go back at least one turn, at least one. And now I'll go back one and I'll do it again. So again, the same thing, I'm going to put it on. I'm going to spin it. Sorry, I lost you there, the camera fell down. So you might hear a click. There it goes. Once you hear a click, you know the pedestal falls down as well. So now let's go back around the TDC again. Right. And we'll look at where we are this time. Alright, I've gone too far. So now I need to go back again. So I must have skipped. To be honest, the arrow's pointing the wrong way completely. So my arrow needs to be pointed inwards. So I'm going to take this out. Because the arrow needs to point in, otherwise I'm the wrong way around. It's easy to line it up, but you can line it up on the wrong gearing. Alright, so I don't know if you see my arrow? That needs to be pointing inwards towards the block, because that's the short end. So I put it in the first time to see where I was, but obviously I've gone right around, and if I kept going where I was going to end up on the wrong one. So that's where we're sitting at now. So I'm hoping once I turn it and it clicks down, that this one should be it. TDC again. How am I looking? Oh yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'll just take it out, it's easier. So, and of course the shadow has to be right down there. So you can see, I'm lined up with 1, 2. My arrow's pointing in because I pointed it because that's the one I wanted towards the block, because that's the short D compared to the big D on this side. And then just obviously to make sure I'm coming around to check, and I'm on TDC. So there's no way in there that you could put it on a different gear without it looking like that. It'd be off. So I'm pretty happy that that's good timing. Good timing. Good timing. I'm gonna go up and get some food. Anyway, that's it for this one. So yeah. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this pedestal off. I'm gonna put a bit of paste, tiny bit of paste, and I'm gonna put the gonna put this down. And I'm gonna button it up, and that be it for that end of it. And that's all the timing done. That's fine. I'm gonna torque it down, and then I'm gonna do all the oil plugs. I'm gonna flip it around and do the sump, because now with all that done, all the timing done, I don't need to be at this again. So I'm gonna now put my gasket on the bottom and button all that up. I won't do a video on that because, to be honest, that's pretty straightforward. That's just, well, let's put the something. Then you have to notice the torque settings along the side, and that, remember, there's different torque settings on the front because the aluminium blocks. So again, just offhand, if these were 12, then the ones on the front and the aluminium is only like 5 to 6 pounds pressure. Like it's very little. I always tell people that don't torque them really at all at the front, just do a little bit, and then when you run it, whenever you see a bit of oil, if you do, then just give it a little tighten. So once it stops or it's to a bare seep, leave it at that. Because if once you go beyond too much, you'll end up like what you've seen in the other one. You'll overdo it, you'll rip the treads, and that's it. There's no going back. So a good seal is much better than more torque, and that's where you usually get it, the front and the back. That's where the leaks come from, because obviously it's the lightest or the least amount of pressure. Anyway, that's it. So other than that, I'm going to go get some food, and then I'm going to get cracking and putting the stuff on, and then hopefully tomorrow the next video is going to be putting our engine back in the car, and then from there we'll start adding on all the other bits and pieces, like our fuel pump and all that jazz and so on. That will all get added on. The only thing I will do before it goes in is I will throw the clutch on. So when I have it in the air, there's a clutch over there, as you can see, but that's not it. That's off a different one. I'll throw the clutch and everything on before I throw back in. Like I said, that's simple settings. If you just have to look at the torque settings on them as well. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. And again, any comments, questions, concerns, give me a shout, and I'll help you as best I can. It wasn't precision. I know I want to be exactly 5 tau, and it's not going to be. But again, that could be based. That's just based on the washer, and also the size of the gasket I have. If I have a gasket that was 2 tau, and then it'd be a much better fit. I'm going with 2 tau based on this side, because like it looked like the washer was a little bigger than the other, one side than the other. So, but again, like 2 tau is not going to do you. Like if you were like 5 or 6 or something off, then I'd be a little worried. So yeah, and if someone might say, hey, look, you're up to 7, it's meant to be 5, it's really only 2 tau. 2 tau is manageable. And again, that's only based off the washer. So unless you have a precision washer that's exactly the same width all the way around, then yeah, that's why I don't like feeler gauges. I'd rather use the dial gauge and have somehow, like I said, I wanted to have a system where, that's why I put this as well. I was going to put a dial gauge here to measure the distance it came up, and actually have a much better, instead of playing with feeler gauges, guessing what it is, or hey, this probably fits a little better, I'd rather have an actual look, like how I do the rockers. I'd rather be able to physically see it. But I'm working on the way of doing it, and I'm going to probably use a bolt sticking up here and have the gauge sitting up higher, and then I'll use that when I take it off, and I'll be able to measure. So I'm going to work on that. I'll work out a way of being able to do it. Anyway, that's it again. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next part.